Rook locked onto wellhead 7 before the gauge needles even twitched. No bark. No lunge. He simply sat, spine straight, ears forward, his black mask tan coat dusted with rig grit, and stared at the casing seam like it owed him something. Then he didn't move again. I'd done this work 11 years, and I'd learned exactly one rule that never failed. When Rook sat down like that, something under our boots was already wrong. Inspector Vance. Site Director Velkorsko's neck membrane flared a pale, irritated gold, the Hesperitell he hadn't yet learned to hide from humans. Your dog is performing for the Crust Integrity Office. That is all that is happening here. He's not performing. I crouched beside Rook and ran 2 fingers down his spine. The calming pass the handler manual called it, the checking in I called it. His muscles sat like cable under the fur. He's telling me there's volatile gas migrating along that seem faster than your readouts show. Our readouts are current to the hour. His current to the minute. Korsko's collar flared brighter. Around us the wellhead deck kept being a wellhead deck, drills howling somewhere below, steam bleeding off the flare stack into Berenice Shoal's bruised orange sky, 3 Hesperi roughnecks pretending not to watch an Earth dog refuse to leave a patch of decking the size of a dinner table. I'd inspected 4 other Hesper combined rigs. None of them had ever made the floor feel wrong the way this one did. A faint pressure in my boots I couldn't have named without Rook there to confirm it. I keyed my slate and started logging. Don't. Korsko's voice dropped, which on a Hesperi meant something closer to a human shout. You log an unconfirmed seismic anomaly off a domestic animal's behavior. The office pulls our extraction window. We lose 6 weeks and 4 million credits to a dog's nap posture. Then confirm it yourselves. Run the deep bore array. The deep bore array is occupied. We are 11 hours from quota. I finished the entry anyway. Time, location, animal behavior, handle assessment, requested action, immediate deep bore confirmation, wellhead 7, casing seam C12. I'd filed 400 of these in 11 years. Most of them came back clean. I filed them all the same way, because the one time it wasn't clean was the only time that mattered. Korsko watched me finish, then turned and said something fast and low into his collar MIC that I didn't catch. 2 minutes later, Security Chief Dreltossen came across the deck the way armored things come across decks, unhurried, because nothing on this rig had ever needed to hurry for him before. Inspector. Ossen's voice carried the flat plate-on-plate resonance of his kind. Site directors ask that you and the animal relocate off the primary work area. You're a liability standing on an active seam. I'm a Crust Integrity Inspector standing on an active seam I have every legal right to inspect. The dog stays where the dog is. The dog is in the way. The dog, I said, is the only instrument on this platform that's told you the truth in the last 6 minutes. Ossen's gaze went to Rook, sitting, silent, eyes on the seam, not so much as a tail twitch in Ossen's direction, and something in that stillness clearly unsettled him more than a snarl would have. He reached for the leash clip on Rook's harness anyway. A new voice cut in before his hand closed on it. Chief, I'd reconsider that. Shift Engineer Tarnul Vashi crossed from the monitoring shed at a pace that wasn't quite a run, breathing slits along her throat working hard enough that I could hear them over the drills. She was Virathai, taller than the Hesperi crew, paler, with a calm that read as professional rather than indifferent. I worked 4 seasons on a joint survey crew with Earth handlers out past the Coralline Drift, she said. I have seen this dog's posture exactly once before. A detection animal sits like that for one reason, Chief, and it is never a performance. You touch that harness, you are not moving a dog. You are deciding, on your own authority, to override a deathworld sensory animal mid-alert on a platform with an active casing breach risk, with a regulator standing right here to write it down. Ossen's hand didn't close on the clip. It also didn't leave. The director gave an instruction, he said. The director isn't the one whose name goes on the incident report, Ulvasha said. Yours is. Mine is. I'd think about that before you put your hand any closer to that dog. Nobody moved for 3 full seconds. Rook didn't either, not toward Ossen, not away from him. He simply kept sitting, kept watching the seam, breathing slow through his nose like the whole conversation was whether happening somewhere else. Ossen stepped back first. Korsko didn't take the retreat well. He came down to the deck himself, collar flared gold to amber now. The color I'd later learn meant a Hesperi was past irritated and into something closer to cornered. This stops now, he said. I am authorizing continued extraction. The animal will be removed from the active work zone in the next 2 minutes, by whatever means security requires, and your readings will reflect a routine inspection with no confirmed anomaly. My readings will reflect exactly what happened. Then they will reflect an inspector who let a house pet dictate combine operations. He's not a house pet, Director. He's a working detection animal with a 400 incident service record and a 6% false positive rate over his career, which is better than most of your instrumentation. You can pull his file from the office tonight if you'd like to argue the math. Corsko's mouthparts worked, no sound coming out, the Hesperi equivalent of swallowing an answer he didn't have. That was when the platform's own gauges finally caught up. A klaxon 2 decks down cut through the drill noise. Short, then long, then short again, the casing integrity pattern every roughneck on the rig had drilled for and hoped never to hear live. Steam that had been venting clean off the flare stack went the color of old rust. Somewhere below us, metal made a sound I felt in my teeth before I heard it. Seam pressure spike, casing C12. A voice crackled over the deck speakers, flat with the particular calm of someone reading numbers they didn't yet believe. Confirmed migration along the original alert coordinates. Rook's alert. To the meter. Corsko stood very still for a moment, collar draining from amber back toward pale gold, and I understood I was watching a man, a Hesperi, but a man in every way that mattered, do the arithmetic on 6 minutes of denial against however many lives stood on this platform and the colony shelf beneath it. Full shutdown, he said, quiet now, almost to himself. Then, louder, to the deck. Full shutdown, all wellheads, emergency protocol. Now. The drills began winding down, one by one, that particular falling note of heavy machinery being told to stop being heavy machinery. Ossen was already moving, shouting evacuation order into his collar MIC, the roughnecks breaking from their pretending not to watch postures into something closer to a controlled sprint. Rook didn't move until the last drill went silent. Then, and only then, he stood, shook the rig grid off his coat in one long ripple from ears to tail, and looked up at me like the job was finished, because it was. I logged the final entry standing on a platform that had nearly killed a few hundred people 6 minutes before its own instruments noticed. 6 minutes Rook had spent sitting perfectly still on a patch of decking the size of a dinner table, while a director with a collar full of irritation tried to have him dragged off it. Ulvashi found me at the transport rail an hour later, the evacuation thinned out, the flare stack finally venting clean again under a sky going the deep bruised purple Berenice shoal called evening. Corsko's grounded pending combined review, she said. Internal memos already circulating. Apparently 6 minutes of ignored anomaly reads very differently once the casing actually cracks. It usually does. Your dog have a name. Rook. She crouched, the way you do for something you respect rather than something you're charmed by, and held out the back of her hand. Rook sniffed it once, accepted it as adequate, and leaned his weight into my leg instead, the only opinion he'd offered all day that wasn't a flat stare at a casing seam. 4 seasons with Earth handlers, I said, and that's the first time you've seen the sit and hold. Once before. A border collie, mining colony on the drift, called a tunnel collapse 40 minutes before the survey team's own sensors agreed with her. Ulvasha straightened, breathing slits easing now that the platform under us had stopped trying to tell us something. I didn't believe it the first time either. I do now. The last transport out was a quiet one. I sat with my back against the bulkhead and my hand resting on Rook's flank, feeling it rise and fall slower with every minute the rig fell away behind us, until somewhere over open water he stopped watching the door and put his head down across my boots instead. He was asleep before we cleared the shelf. I logged the file's last line by the cabin's dim emergency light, the casing breach numbers from the platform's own instruments lined up next to the timestamp on Rook's original alert, 6 minutes apart, and didn't need to write anything else under it. The numbers said all of it.